By the 1870s, Hetty Green had developed a system that made her invincible. While Wall Street gasped for air amidst rampant speculation, Hetty practiced the religion of tangible assets. Her strategy was brilliantly simple. Buy cheap when everyone is in a panic, and hold until the world returns to normal. She didn't watch stock tickers every hour. Instead, she looked at the map of the United States. Hetty understood that the country was expanding westward, which meant it needed arteries of steel. She began buying up mortgages and shares of railroads that were on the brink of bankruptcy. The Erie Railroad, the Reading Railroad, the Kansas City Fort Scott and Gulf. She became the mistress of the tracks that transported the gold, coal, and grain of the entire nation. But Hetty didn't stop at the rails. She bought up land, hectares in Chicago that would soon become the business district, entire blocks in St. Louis, enormous tracts in New York. She held the mortgages of thousands of farmers and shopkeepers. Her office? She didn't have one. Hetty considered rent to be a complete waste of money. She worked right in the halls of the banks where she kept her accounts, sitting on the floor amidst sacks of documents or at a makeshift side table. She personally reviewed every report, every single figure. "I don't gamble. I own America," she liked to say. Wall Street hated her for that calm, while traders lived in a state of constant stress. Hetty Green could wait for years. She knew that time was the most expensive commodity, and she had it in abundance because her capital was not burdened by debt. She was her own bank. Her buy and forget strategy transformed her from a merely wealthy woman into a financial leviathan. She didn't just follow the market. She became the very foundation upon which that market stood. And woe to anyone who tried to stand in her way when it came time to collect. In the 1880s, Hetty Green's name was known across the globe, yet no one could find her permanent address. The richest woman in the world lived like a refugee. She rented the cheapest rooms in boarding houses across Brooklyn or Hoboken, checking in under assumed names to evade the attention of tax inspectors and beggars. Her lifestyle was beyond comprehension. With an income of thousands of dollars a day, Hetty spent only a few cents on food. Her typical lunch consisted of oatmeal, which she bought in bulk. To avoid spending money on gas for heating, she would bring a pot to the bank office and place it on a radiator. If a restaurant served her a dish that was too expensive, she was known to cause a scene over a measly 2 cents on the bill. Her wardrobe became the stuff of Wall Street legend. That infamous black dress, which she wore for decades, was literally falling to pieces. She mended it herself until the layers of patches were thicker than the original fabric. Hetty would only send her undergarments to the laundry when they became unbearably filthy, and she strictly ordered the laundresses to wash only the dirtiest spots, the hem of the dress, just to save money on soap. She didn't use hot water, considering it an unjustifiable luxury. She never bought newspapers. Instead, she would wait for them to be read and discarded at the bank so she could take them home. Even after her children were grown, she continued moving from place to place, dragging along trunks filled with bonds and old junk. People wondered, why? Why own railroads and banks if you sleep on a hard cot and eat cold porridge? But for Hetty, money was not a means to live. It was a scoreboard in a game where victory meant accumulation and defeat meant any expenditure. She perceived every dollar spent as a personal loss in her battle against the world. At the age of 33, Hetty surprised everyone. She got married. Her chosen groom was Edward Green, a handsome millionaire from a respected family. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect union of two fortunes. But Hetty wouldn't be Hetty if she had simply trusted in love. Before saying "I do," she forced Edward to sign a document that was considered an unheard of audacity in the 19th century, a total waiver of any rights to her property. She officially separated their finances. Edward could spend his own millions on cigars, social clubs, and luxury mansions, but he had no access to a single cent of Hetty's. Their marriage was a paradox. Edward loved a life of show. He was generous, social, and a gambler. Hetty Meanwhile, continued to patch her old dresses and calculate the cost of every candle in the house. She viewed her husband's spending as a form of slow suicide, and her intuition did not betray her. In 1885, the financial world was shaken to its core. The banking house, where Edward kept his assets and conducted risky speculations, collapsed. It was revealed that Hetty's husband hadn't just lost his own money. He had used her name and part of her influence to cover his staggering debts. For Hetty, this was a betrayal worse than infidelity. When the bank's management came to her demanding she cover her husband's debts from her personal millions, she caused a massive scene. "My money is my money," she screamed. She withdrew all of her funds from that bank, effectively dealing it a final, crushing blow. She didn't give her husband a single cent for his rescue. Edward Green, once a brilliant millionaire, was left penniless. Hetty kicked him out of the house, or rather, the rooms they were renting, declaring that she had no intention of feeding a bankrupt man. They lived apart for the rest of his days, and only when he was on his deathbed did she show a strange mercy, paying for his hospital bills and funeral. Hetty Green's marriage proved one thing. In her world, the heart was just another organ that must not interfere with the work of a calculator. In the winter of 1882, an accident occurred in Vermont that forever divided the life of the Green family into before and after. Hetty's son, Edward, known at home as Ned, was sledding when he severely injured his knee. The wound was deep, and the pain was unbearable. Any other mother in her position would have immediately called for the finest surgeon. But Hetty Green was not any other mother. Her first instinct was to calculate the cost of a doctor's visit. Deciding it was far too expensive, she took an unbelievable step. She pulled her oldest, most tattered clothes from a trunk, dressed herself like a beggar, and forced Ned to wear rags. In this guise, the wealthiest woman in America dragged her suffering son to a free clinic for the poor. She stood in line for hours among vagrants, hoping to receive medical care for free. The doctors at the free clinic recognized her. A scandal broke out. The medical staff refused to treat a millionaire's son for free. Instead of paying, Hetty stormed out in a rage, declaring that she would cure the boy herself. She attempted to treat him with home poultices and cheap ointments. Week after week, the wound grew more inflamed until gangrene set in. Only when Ned could no longer even scream from the pain did a frightened Hetty finally hire doctors. But it was too late. To save the boy's life, the physicians had to take extreme measures. Ned's leg was amputated above the knee. For the rest of his life, Ned Green would walk on a wooden prosthetic, a perpetual reminder that his mother valued a bank account more than his health. All of New York called her a monster. People whispered that she had traded her son's leg for a few dollars. The most surprising part was that Ned himself, as he grew older, did not hate his mother. He became her loyal assistant, the only person she trusted even a little. But the shadow of that free clinic hung over their relationship forever. Hetty had proved that her loyalty to money was absolute, even if the altar of that devotion demanded human sacrifice. 1907 went down in history as the bankers' panic. The market collapsed. New York's largest financial institutions were bursting one after another, like soap bubbles. Banks ran out of cash. People stormed the branches, trying to withdraw their savings, only to find the doors locked. In those days, even the great J.P. Morgan was scrambling in search of liquidity. Wall Street, once proud and arrogant, was on its knees. And at that moment, she appeared on the scene once again. Hetty Green was one of the few who hadn't invested in shady pyramid schemes or taken out loans. All those years, her fanatical saving and her habit of keeping enormous sums in cold, hard cash had seemed like madness. Now, it became her superpower. While others held paper, Hetty held gold and currency. A queue of yesterday's mockers lined up at her modest desk at Chemical Bank. The very same bankers who had laughed at her tattered dress were now begging her for loans. The mayor of New York City personally came to her when the city had no money left to pay teachers and police officers. Hetty didn't refuse, but she was ruthless. She handed out millions, secured against the city's prime real estate and at interest rates that made borrowers break into a sweat. She wrote out multi-million-dollar checks with an ordinary pencil, sitting on her battered trunk. They come to me when their affairs are in a bad way. She sneered to the reporters. That year, Hetty Green effectively became New York City's lender of last resort. She saved the city from chaos, but she did it entirely on her own terms. The crisis that wiped out thousands of fortunes sent her own wealth into the stratosphere. She proved to the entire world that her insane accumulation strategy was the only one that truly worked. After all, in the world of finance, it doesn't matter what you look like. All that matters is how much cash you have in the vault when the lights go out.